Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was going to do Haryam Chintamani, a work by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but I thought before that I'll just take a little detour here and explain a little bit about sound, this is not based on scripture so much, but anyway, maybe interesting to people. So, sound we know is vibration, and according to scientific definition, it's air molecules vibrating, and it hits your eardrum, and your eardrum vibrates. And then this causes some stimulation in your nervous system, and that goes to your brain, and then you hear a sound. That's the technical definition of sound. But of course, it is a vibration of sorts. Prabhupada always calls it a transcendental vibration, mantra, etc. But vibration is spiritual. But in the material world, we have vibration also, and that vibration also has got some remarkable pervasion of the material world. For instance, the atoms are all vibrating. Within the atoms, we have electrons and neutrons and protons and stuff, and they're always moving around. And they have their own particular vibration. And the atoms combine together and they form molecules. And then the molecules form larger substances. They go together and they're all vibrating at certain rates. So they have their frequencies, so many vibrations per second or whatever. So consequently, when we get our whole, let's say the body has a vibration, and the organs of the body have specific vibrations also. And we don't think about that. Some people have measured the vibrations, and based on that they've figured out that you can measure your health or your illness on the vibrations of your different organs. So the heart will vibrate at a certain rate, the lungs and liver, different rates. And if your vibration is not proper, it's not the proper frequency, then that means there's something wrong with that particular organ. So then the cure is not operate and cut something out, but adjust the vibration to bring it back to the normal state. So the vibrational medicine is there. So that's a field of research that persons have done in the early 20th century, and they figured out the different vibratory rates of different parts of the body, and they developed a whole sort of science upon that. It was not so popular, but it seemed to work. And of course, even now we have some alternative medicines dealing with vibrations, etc. But it actually started in the early 1900s, and it's continued to be practiced by some people. So that's organ vibrations. So our health depends on vibrations. And they found that they could cure certain diseases which are otherwise rather difficult to cure, like eczema. They don't really have a cure for that. They don't even know what it is really. Maybe it's tension, maybe it's this. So they could adjust your vibrations and cure it. Or colitis or asthma, which are also difficult to cure. So they got some cures that way. So that's one field of investigation, vibration of the body. Another, of course, is the brain. We have brain waves. It's a completely different type of wave from the vibrations of your body, because it has to do with your thought processes and your waking state, your dream state, etc. So broadly, we have different states of mind. We have, waking state and dream state, light sleep, deep sleep, etc. And in the Vedic literature also, they categorize your, waking state and your dream state and your deep sleep state as different states of being for the human being. And your brain is in one of these states at all times. And each of these states have particular frequencies of vibration. And if you're not sleeping properly, probably those vibrations are also not proper. So that's one thing. But of course, we have another type of vibration in the brain besides that, and that is your thoughts. So that also creates vibrations. Of course, previously they couldn't quite figure out how to measure your thoughts or whatever in terms of science. Of course, yogis do that. They can detect your thoughts and whatever, and your emotions, but science couldn't do that. But with modern machines, they've figured out now frequencies of the brain and how they're configured, and that certain thoughts and certain concepts have certain frequencies or waves. So they're able to actually read your thoughts now with a computer. You can figure out what you're thinking. And they can also, because they can do that, they can also feed back vibrations into your brain and make you think things. So it's type of mind control. So it's a rather dangerous thing to work on, but nevertheless they discovered things like this in science. So this is one field of investigation. So they could change their moods and whatever with that. So that's the human being brain. If we go back to the whole Earth is also vibrating. So there's something called the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, and that's its healthy vibration. And it's giving off this vibration. And coincidentally, the alpha state of the human being, when the human being is very relaxed, which is also like maybe the meditative state or the samadhi state, is also the same frequency. It runs in harmonics with the vibration of the earth. So we can see in that way that the human being and the earth go together. If the human beings are peaceful, then they can cooperate with the earth, and if they're all agitated, their minds are going at other rates, then not so good for the earth, not so good for the human being. So very, very interesting that the alpha state and the earth vibration are going together. So this is just some, can be measured, that vibration. It is something that naturally takes place on the earth due to the ionosphere and the, I don't know what else, the magnetic fields and the gravity and so many other factors on the earth. But if we think of the earth also then as a vibrating living entity apart from all the creatures on the earth, but the whole earth itself is kind of like an entity, vibrating. We can appreciate how the Bhagavatam also speaks about the earth as a personality, like a cow. Earth is the cow and bull is the dharma, so the cow's a living entity, is very, very sensitive to different things. So if we disturb the earth, obviously the vibrations are not going to be proper also. Okay? And thus the earth will get disturbed and so many things will happen, like wrong climates and earthquakes and so many things like that. And also because of the vibrations, we understand that certain places on the earth are very good for meditation, very good for spiritual development. So that's why we got around the earth sacred places, sacred spots. And all civilizations seem to have understood this, and they built their monuments and their temples on these sacred spots, from even in ancient times in America and England and Europe, etc. For instance, Stonehenge is built on a certain place. There are sacred sites in America. And of course, India has so many sacred sites. So why these particular sites? Because the earth was got certain vibrations to it, which were very favorable for spiritual life. So that people would congregate there for important events. So we shouldn't think that the primitive people were so primitive after all, because they could detect the powerful places on earth, which became very sacred. Another type of vibration is musical vibrations. These are vibrations, but they get related to each other mathematically to make notes. Yeah? So we get C, D, E, F. The vibrations are mathematically related to each other, so mathematicians are quite fond of music because they can analyze it, all those vibrations, and figure out exactly when you're going to have a harmonic sound there by looking at the vibration and correct it. So this is, we say music also is, among the human beings, is quite, that's universal also. Was always singing, and they all developed, all human beings seem to develop, along with language, they also develop notes, singing notes. And most of the countries of the world also develop the same scale. So this scale is quite powerful also. The frequencies are fixed, let's say, in relation to each other. We also try to fix them fix so that everybody on the world's in the same tune. They got the same, because you can alter it a little bit, the violin, you can tune it so much this way and that way, but they've got to rather fix the vibrations or C, and therefore everything else gets fixed, or for A, etc. So another thing is that some people have figured out that the vibrations of certain notes are also stimulating to the chakras of the body. So we have the 7 chakras, and they also have the particular vibratory rate. And so if your chakras are out of sync, then if you play that particular note, it tends to bring it back into proper order. The chakras, of course, are useful because of they also affect the material body. Like the heart chakra and the heart itself, or the Manipuraka chakra and here is with the stomach area like this. So they're all disturbed and they're vibrating at the wrong rate, then you get intestinal problems or stomach problems or heart problems or throat problems like this, according to the chakras. So the notes of the scale will also influence the chakras and make them come back to their natural vibratory rate. Of course, you cannot see the chakras unless you have special eyes. So therefore science doesn't really believe in all of this, but this has been passed down in India, written in the scriptures also. Each chakra even has a specific number of petals and different colors, etc. to go with it. So it also has a vibration to go with it, a specific note, which helps that. It also has a mantra to go with it, or a certain bij syllable for each chakra. So this not only helps the subtle body and spiritual development, also helps the gross body, because they're related to the organs of the body. So if you have your chakras vibrating properly, then you get proper health in the different areas. So music is so powerful that they notice that if they give certain types of music to plants, the plants grow very nicely. And if they have different types of music, they don't grow at all, they sometimes die. So if you have classical, peaceful music, they grow very nicely. Classical music or Vedic music, Ragas, etc., they grow very nicely. If you put rock music, so they don't like it. They tend to die. Or they move away from the music, they don't like it. And plants don't even have nervous systems, they don't have ears, they don't have brains, but they're very sensitive to these notes of the scale. So they also tried on animals, like little mice. So they played music. This is Tokyo University. They did this one with a little operation on the mice, and then to see how quickly they recover. So they had one group, just let them recover on their own. The other, they played nice Mozart music. So the rats, the mice that got the Mozart music, they healed faster. And if they had some single tone music or rock music, whatever, then they didn't heal. The mice wouldn't heal. Okay? So it affects not only plants, music also affects animals. Not only they affected the healing, they also affected the brain of the mice. So they've done experiments with mice also, and they play nice classical music, and then they measure their intelligence. They have to go through a little puzzle, get out the other end to get the little food. So they time how fast they can go through the puzzle. So when they get the music, then they go for quicker. And when they have the heavy rock music, they don't. They go the opposite. They're slower. And in fact, they played rock music too much, and then the animals started killing each other. So that's the effect of heavy rock music on animals, on the little mice. What to speak of human beings, but little mice, they get all agitated, they start biting each other. So this is the effect of music on animals and plants, very, very powerful. Huh? So they've also experimented with human beings. So they take, people, and then they have the control group, no music, another group with the music, and they play the music when they're sick or whatever, and they're healing. So that restful music, like classical music, it helps them heal quicker. So therefore, the human beings also are influenced by music, and it helps heal the body. They've also found that some music is stressful. It creates cortisol in the body, that's the stress hormone. And that excites the body. So music which is very exciting and loud and rhythmic, well, it excites the body. This will create cortisol. So it gives a temporary nice feeling, which people experience, for instance, when they go to a cricket match or a football game and they're cheering and yelling and jumping up and down. They got bands playing things and drums going like this, so it excites them. So this produces a lot of cortisol in the body. Similarly, when they have armies, they have a band. And the band is a marching band, bang, 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 and the trumpets are blowing like this, and they're marching down the thing. So this also stimulates the cortisol. So it's a defense mechanism in one sense. It's good for animals when they're in danger. The cortisol increases, and then they're able to run away or fight or whatever like that. So that's why the armies also have this. You'll see even the ancient armies, like the Roman army, they would have their drummers there, bang, 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 and they would march off like this. So it does have an effect, and they discovered that early in human history, that the rhythms and the noise, etc., had an effect on the human being. Okay, but unfortunately, there's a problem with that cortisol. When you get that cortisol, it becomes addictive. So you always want that music, or you always want that excitement. So you get that stuck on that. And then the other problem is that the cortisol actually destroys your system ultimately. It weakens your immune system so that you're more prone to get sick, etc. So in other words, it's not good for your health. So then people that are constantly exposed to loud music and all this stuff, like the modern stuff, and all the noise, etc., their health will deteriorate quickly. They'll age quickly. Organs will not stop functioning much earlier than normal. Yeah. So, therefore, we have to be careful of what type of music we hear. So, sound is so powerful, they can use it as a weapon. We see how it's unhealthy for you, whatever, but different governments of the world are experimenting with different weapons. So they got biological weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons. They also got sound weapons. The sound weapon is such that it can, injure you. It can make you panic. It can make you sick. It can paralyze you, whatever, and maybe kill as well. So that's how powerful sound is. Yeah? So it's something which is, all around us, but it can be used in different ways. We can also look at sound from the point of view of the three gunas, which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So we have three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And if you have a sattvic environment, you tend to get sattvic. You tend to become peaceful. If you have a rajasic environment, you tend to get passionate. If you have a tamasic environment, you tend to be destructive and lazy. So you can have tamasic environments or rajasic environments or sattvic environments. You can have sattvic food, rajasic food, tamasic food, and they all affect us and put us into that mode. So the same with music. Music was the same. You get sattvic music, very peaceful, and sattva is stability, restoring the body, maintenance, etc. Rajas is very active and stimulating. Tamasic is irrational and destructive. So everything in the world is can be classified according to gunas. We can have food in the gunas, music in the gunas, knowledge in the gunas, action in the gunas, values in the gunas, health in the gunas. Everything is in the gunas. And obviously, if we want to be healthy, we have to choose sattva over rajas and tamas. So therefore, music also is one of those things. And music is very powerful because it starts influencing the whole body also. So we have to be careful, therefore, of what type of sound we have around us. It can affect us. Another interesting aspect of sound is it has form. Usually we think, well, sound is just some waves going in your ear. So it's something you hear, it's not something you see. But they have a little instrument called the somatic instrument, which you see here. It's a plate attached to a machine, and then when you play a note on the keyboard or whatever, then that machine makes that plate vibrate at that rate. And on top of the plate there's some sand. So that sand will start changing its pattern according to the note you play. So we get all sorts of patterns coming out of the on the plate. So actually, each note has a different pattern to it. So it's not only this sound going in your ear, that sound also has a shape to it. Now this is a two-dimensional shape, but we can also say it's got a three-dimensional shape. Also, we don't know about how to record that. This is just a simple thing, a plate that vibrates, but it probably has a three-dimensional shape also, or maybe a four-dimensional shape or whatever. This is material sound. So the notes of the scale have particular patterns, like snowflakes or something like that. So, in other words, very precise. Nature is very precise in how it operates. So even the notes of the scale have some harmonious patterns to go with them, like that. You can also do it in water. You can take a water dish and vibrate it and change it into different patterns as well. And even get funny-looking faces like this. I think that's a low, very low G or something, or G sharp or something. Okay. So we got something called Yantras. They're also a form of sound. They are a form of a mantra. So yantras are geometrical figures used for meditation, but they actually represent mantras. So they're, I would say that's the form of sound also. And simultaneously, the yantras also represent the whole universe. So the universe is also a mantra, universe is also sound. We see in the Bhagavatam how there's a central island, or central mountain in the middle, Mount Meru, that's the center of the thing, and then there's little islands going around and oceans, etc., and you go out. So that's actually what's represented in the yantra as well. They've got a whole series of islands expanding outwards. And the whole thing is very symmetrical. So in other words, the whole universe is a symmetrical thing like that. Huh? So there's many different yantras to represent different sounds. This is the Shri yantra for Lakshmi. So we see that just as there's symmetry in the yantra representing the universe, we do have symmetry in the whole galaxy, for instance. We find a symmetries, and the same symmetry we'll find in the seashell or in the pine cone or in the sunflower. There's a sort of mathematical formula by which the spiral turns of a galaxy or a seashell or a pine cone or whatever. And it's all the same. It's operating according to the golden mean, whatever that is, it's a certain proportion. Okay, so another type of form is raga. So we found that individual notes have a form with that machine, the cymatic machine. But when we take combinations of notes, we get ragas. They're not exactly scales, because we have like maybe 3 scales in the Western system, major, minor, and an extra minor scale. But in India there's thousands and thousands of ragas, because they're combinations of notes, not exactly scales. So you may have a 5-note selection, a 6-note or a 7-note selection, plus then you get the sharps and the flats and all that, so you can combine them in all sorts of ways. And then in a particular raga, then you only play those notes. So the ragas are defined, of course in Sanskrit it gives the notes, and then it also gives a form. It tells you who the raga is and describes a person, maybe a female or a male. They may be golden in color or reddish in color or blackish in color or bluish in color or green in color, and they're doing different activities or whatever like that. So the raga has a form, in other words. And if you play or you sing the raga or play the raga properly, then that form should manifest. So this is called the Hindula raga. This one here with Radha and Krishna on the swing, that's the Hindula raga. Hindula, so Radha Krishna on a swing. So that's another aspect of sound. So another aspect of sound is words. So this is very important for the human being. In fact, in Sanskrit, sabda means sound. It also means word. So very important to convey information or knowledge. So in science, as I said, the ear here, it detects it, and then there's a wave going in there from the air. So that's basically what sound is in the modern world. then it goes to the brain. We store the information in the brain. And if it is words and sentences, etc., the result is we get knowledge. So that's a very important function of sound. So that is why the Vedas, which are basically words, are called Veda, which means knowledge. Because out of those words we get very, very important knowledge. Of course, the Vedic definition of sound is a little different. It's not going through the air, it's going through the ether, according to Bhagavatam. It's quite different. And it's not just any sound, it's sounds which conveys an idea of an object. So it communicates information, the sound. And it doesn't go through air, it goes through the ether. Another point is that the sound actually is heard not by this ear, but by another ear, which is an element. The senses are actually elements that come out of Prakriti. Through the tamasic transformation, ahankara, tamasika ahankara transforms into the senses. And so these senses are very subtle. And they're attached to the subtle body. And they go with you. When you go out of your body in your subtle body, your subtle senses go with you. That's described in the when a Puranjana goes out of his body, he takes his pranas and his senses with him. So those are different from these senses, which are they rot away when your body dies. So we get two such senses: this sense plus the subtle sense. And so it's that subtle sense that actually hears the sound. So sound is a little bit more subtle than we think it is. Then sound has a very special aspect. Not only it conveys information, but it is also the medium of spiritual knowledge, not just material knowledge, but spiritual knowledge. We may wonder, how can sound give us something spiritual because it's material? But we have spiritual sound also. So that is what the Vedas are. They are spiritual sound, not material sound, which is difficult for us to understand because it looks like we're taking it with our ears, etc. But actually, it's different. We understand that the Vedas emanate from the mouth of the Supreme Lord Himself. We have the story of Hayagriva. He breathes out the Vedas. So the sound of the Vedas is the breathing of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And thus we have a glorification of the sound of the Vedas. To make it all simple, they have one little sound, Om, or the Pranava. That's the seed of all the Vedas. And within that one sound you have all the Vedas, which sounds incomprehensible, but nevertheless, it's the seed of the Vedas. And it's from that all the Vedas expand. From Om comes the Gayatri mantra, and from the Gayatri mantra then we have all the Vedas. So it's a very concentrated syllable, very, very special syllable, and thus it's glorified in the Vedas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that syllable Om is the basic syllable sound of the Vedas. The Mahavakya, the great statement of the Vedas, is Om, which is equivalent to Vishnu. So in other words, the final object of the Vedas is to reveal Vishnu through Om. There's an interesting story about Om also, modern story. There was some person a few years ago in America. He ended up with a brain infection suddenly, and then he had to go to the hospital, and then finally he just was almost dead, And he was, I think about 2 weeks, he was in near-death experience, kind of, coma and all this, and he went into a near-death experience, and then he had all sorts of experiences in there, but he was in his half-dead state. Then he recovered afterwards. And so when he recovered, his near-death experiences, in which he was, he went to this world, and it was like a Svargaloka type world, maybe a little bit less than that. But anyway, it was very beautiful, with wonderful things there, people flying all over the place at will. Like angels or whatever, and they didn't have gross material bodies. But then one thing he noticed was there was this sound everywhere. And what was the sound? It was this Om sound vibrating in the sky all over the place. He didn't know what it was because he didn't know anything about the Vedas or anything. He was just a regular American Christian. I didn't know what that was, but when he recovered then, he understood that this is a very famous syllable. But that was vibrating there behind everything. It's Om. So anyway, it's a very, very fundamental syllable. Praise in all the Upanishads as the source of everything and the essence of everything. Okay. So, according to the Bhagavatam, universe is created by the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, through his glance or his willpower. He doesn't have to do anything at all. He doesn't have to use his hands and like that. It's okay, manifests, and everything manifests. It's not created in one sense because Prakriti is eternal, but it manifests into visible, gross elements and into universes. And then when the Lord wills it, everything disintegrates and disappears again. And it's a cyclic creation, destruction of everything. So, in this process of creation, we also find sound in the Vedas. For instance, we find in the Brahma Samhita, when Brahma is doing his creation, afterwards, Brahma heard the Gayatri mantra in the sound of Krishna's flute, and it went into his ears. Then it came out. So he got his diksha through the flute sound of Krishna, and Krishna was his guru. And through that, he was able to create the universe through simply by getting the Gayatri mantra from the Supreme Lord. So coincidentally, modern science also says that sound was also integral to the creation. Of course, they have a different theory, Big Bang theory, not Brahma, or not Vishnu, but a Big Bang. 30,000 years after the Big Bang, matter collapsed around dense seeds of matter, dark matter. Outward pressure from the photons caused the collapsing matter to rebound, creating acoustic waves, that's sound waves, like ripples in a pond. So we get a huge sound coming out of the universe when it's created. Okay, so now get back to the spiritual sound. We saw that sound is concentrated in Om or in mantras, etc., in the Vedas. So, mantra actually means to deliver the mind. Man stands for manas, which means mind. Tra for trayate, to deliver. So the mantra, if you hear it and utter it, it delivers you, or delivers your mind. So why would sound deliver you, and deliver you from what? So the mantra, like the Vedas, is spiritual. So it's not material at all. It may look like it is material to us because it goes in our ear, but actually it is spiritual. It comes from the spiritual world. Somehow it enters into our material realm. And then we can also detect it in the material world, but actually it's still spiritual. So that is what spiritual sound is. It's not of this world, but we still can hear it. So that's a great benediction. It does, of course, go through some transformations so we can hear it. So it's described in the Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures that there's 4 stages of how sound manifests, that we can say it and hear it. So the subtle stage is the spiritual stage called para, which we can't hear that. And then we have pasanti. You can kind of think about it a little bit, or maybe feel it a little bit, what that sound is or what that thing is. When it gets to, we can actually start thinking about it in detail and analyzing it. Oh, that's a word, it means so-and-so, whatever. That's the madhyama stage. And when you can actually say it or hear it, it's the vaikari stage. Okay? So in other words, it evolves from subtle to gross, so that it's accessible to this ear and this vocal cord, like that. It also goes through the chakras, from the Muladhara to the Manipura to the Anahata to the Vishuddha chakras, which are there in the body there, from the base all the way up to the throat. When it gets to the throat, then it becomes vaikari. That means verbal. And you can actually say it, and then you can hear it. Yeah? Nevertheless, that para is still there. It's not that it's disappeared. So there's like a transformation. It's like a little covering that's detectable to us. So when we get to the verbal aspect, that actually the para is still there. So that's what makes the mantra different from material sound. Material sound does not have any para aspect at all. It's just that material level. Huh? This is spiritual sound, mantra, so that we have a para underneath that, what we can detect with our ear and what we can say. Huh? So though it looks like it is material sound, it's more than that. It's got something within it which is spiritual. That's the point. Yeah, like that. So therefore it's deceptive to think that the mantras are just material sound like any other sound of this world. They're very, very special. Come from the spiritual world, and they manifest in this world so we can hear them, but still they remain spiritual. So in other words, the mantra comes from the spiritual world, and of course if we pronounce it properly with devotion, then it will manifest properly when we say it. And then when you hear it, also will manifest nicely, and it will gradually penetrate back and influence the Atma or somebody else's Atma, and then take it to the spiritual world. It purifies and takes it to the spiritual world. So this is the process of chanting mantras and hearing mantras. It helps us develop our spiritual nature and takes us out of this material world. And why? Because it's actually spiritual. So, like experiments on plants and animals and mice and whatever, they've done experiments with the mantras also, with the sound. They've used Sanskrit mantras like the Gayatri mantra, and see how it influences the body and people like that. And they actually saw it's not just some subjective type of effect, I feel good or whatever like that. They measure the health effects. And when they looked at the DNA, they found that it actually improved the DNA. If the DNA is all tangled up, then it's not in good condition. But the chanting of mantras help to unwind the DNA within your cells. So therefore have a very positive effect on your health. Just chanting Gayatri mantra and other Sanskrit mantras. So scientific research. The DNA is in chromosomes. The chromosomes have little tips on the end called telomeres. And these were discovered, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago by one, I think her name was Blackburn. She got a Nobel Prize for discovering the telomeres on the tips of your chromosomes. So the importance of the telomeres is that if the telomeres are nice and strong, then your DNA is in good health, and consequently your body's in good health. But generally, as you age, then those telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. And because of that, then your chromosomes get all tangled up and your DNA gets all messed up. And therefore, you begin to age. And then you get diseases. So in other words, by looking at your chromosomes and looking at those telomeres, you can actually figure out the health of a person. You have nice strong telomeres, then you're in good health. You got little weak ones, and your body's deteriorating. So this provided a very objective way of measuring the effects of different things on people. They tried different things. So of course they tried what was Vedic, music, for instance. It's regular calming music. Has some good effect. Telomeres increased a little bit. They tried vegetarian food over meat, and that also had a nice effect, 5% increase like that. They tried simple exercise. It's walking 10 minutes every day for 2 months. It also did something nice. Telomeres increased. They tried yoga. Okay, yoga also good. They tried qigong, a little too difficult for the people. That's the Chinese system, the slow motion thing. A little difficult for people. They tried group, just discussing in a group every week. That also had very good effect. In other words, just being with people and discussing things, that had a very nice effect on your telomeres also. So they tried all these various things. And then they tried Kirtan. when they got to Kirtan, they got 43% increase in the telomeres improvement. They did, I think, 2 months, 12 minutes a day, which isn't much actually, but they got 43% increase in the telomere strength. Huh? So in other words, it had a very a positive effect, the effect of Kirtan on the physical health of the body. Huh? A very surprising effect. So that's, of course, grossly physical. Huh? But of course, not only the physical body, the subtle body, the mind, etc. They've done experiments with mantras and prayers, etc. And they also found that it helps release tension, etc. Had good psychological effects. So, therefore, on the gross level and on the subtle level, mantra had very good effect. But we're more interested in the spiritual effect. Unfortunately, you cannot scientifically measure the spiritual effect of a mantra, at least with the present instruments that we have. Nevertheless, we can take the testimony of Scripture, which tells us the spiritual effect of mantras, which is the most important for us. So, what the mantra does, because it is spiritual sound, it makes us realize that sound. We saw that material sound had form. He had little patterns coming out of material sound. Ragas had form. So the mantra also has a form. And you realize that spiritual form by chanting the mantra. So therefore, if we chant the name of Krishna, we realize Krishna. So nothing surprising about that, because even material sound has form. So what about spiritual sound? Yes, so if we chant the name of Krishna, we realize Krishna. So by chanting the mantra, then we can realize Krishna. And not only Krishna, but Radha and Krishna. So that's why we chant Hare Krishna. So what is the goal of all this chanting and realizing why Krishna and why not somebody else? So Krishna is very special. By etymology, which means the root, analyzing the root of words, we get 2 syllables, Krishna. So Krish, according to the scriptures, means the source of all power. In other words, he's the original creator of everything. He's the highest in power. Na means the source of all bliss. So therefore, Krishna is the form of God who's the most powerful and the sweetest, full of the highest bliss. So if you realize Krishna by chanting his name, then you can realize the highest bliss. Of course, we don't only chant the name of Krishna, we also chant the name of Rama. But according to scripture, Rama means that person who gives bliss to the great yogis. So it's another word for the bliss giver. And we also chant the word Hare. So Hare stands for Hara, and Hara is Radha. And Radha is who? She is the Hladini Shakti, the bliss energy of Krishna. She's the personification of bliss. So therefore we have 3 words to indicate the highest bliss. So therefore, if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, then you get the highest bliss. Why not? So, the mantra can affect you on the physical level. We saw that with the telomeres getting stronger, 43% increase. It can affect the mind, make you calmer. And then it has the effect on the Atma. That is, we can realize Krishna and get the highest bliss. So of those, we're not so much interested in the mind and the body, we're interested in the development of realization of Krishna. That's where we get the highest bliss from, like that. So yes, it can affect all levels, the DNA or your chakras or your mind and your body, etc. But ultimately, the importance of the mantra is it develops the Atma. So the original meaning of mantra was to deliver the mind. So by controlling the mind through the mantra, we deliver us out of the material world. That's what the deliverance is. We get out of the material world, we develop ourselves a spiritual body, and we go to the spiritual world. So that's the ultimate purpose of the mantra. So, in other words, though it may look deceptively simple, and just like a little bit of sound, or an ordinary sound of this world, or an ordinary word, whatever, mantra is very, very powerful, because it actually has a spiritual base, and if we chant it properly, then we can develop ourselves spiritually and end up going to the spiritual world. So that's why we chant mantra. We can get out of this world and enter into the spiritual realm. Okay. Any questions?
Maharaj, you spoke about the different notes have different frequencies. And I've seen when you have that cymatic device, which shows the pattern. So I've seen that, and they did an experiment, and it says 440 is the regulated A.
Oh, is that the good one or the bad one?
432 actually makes a beautiful smell.
Okay, that's the good one.
Actually, the vibration of the universe.
Yeah, and the other one, they altered it.
They altered it
in 1930 or something, or whatever. Yeah.
After,
so then they made everyone conform to that one standard.
That subtle change in the vibration.
Change the pattern. Yeah. So that's a theory. I don't know how true it is, because I listen to both. I can't figure out the difference between them, because you can play the whole music and just move it up, a little bit of degrees that way. So everything moves up. All the notes move up with it. So then it sounds kind of harmonious also. But some people can detect some sort of difference there in the mood, etc., that it gives. So definitely the vibration is going to be a little different. So so it'll affect your chakras differently.
The chart you put up there for the chakras, I mentioned that the Muladhara chakra was the spiritual chakra, like that's the root chakra.
Yeah.
I'm sort of surprised.
Yeah, it's going backwards, because this is the highest one. Well, it's a root in the sense that that's where the sound enters, then it comes up to your throat like that. But in terms of realization, generally, when they do Kundalini yoga, it goes from the base upwards, and then you get your realization when you hit the top here, and you release all your energy and you get samadhi.
Because I met a girl who, she's a pranic healer, she can see auras.
Yeah.
She went to one of Madhava's Kirtans, and she said that his head chakra is 3 times bigger than normal.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's like always been exercised, I guess, like a spiritual. Normally it's like,
small.
Size, it's 3 times as big. She was really impressed.
Almost as big as his Sika.
Maybe it's because of the Sika. Bigger. Like, what is it? Samson. Samson had his power in his hair.
Yeah. You were talking about getting the benefit of mantra by properly chanting. And there's a discussion of the different types of purity. I believe it's like in the Hare Bhakti-Ras. And it mentions that one of those types of purity is mantra shuddhi. It describes the purification, like chanting mantra purely. And you were also mentioning like the proper pronunciation and things like that. But in this current day and age, who can chant the mantra properly?
Yeah.
And even we see when Jayananda Guru, when he asked Prabhupada if he was chanting Gayatri mantra, he chanted in Prabhupada's ear, and Prabhupada just laughed and said, "Don't worry, we're going to get it." Yet we see like the real essence of the purity of mantra is to receive from the proper source. According to Prabhupada. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, there's 2 things. One is that there's different types of mantras. We have Vedic mantras. They are very particular, and to get the proper effect, then you have to go through, proper intonation, etc., because they have different swaras, high, middle, low, and then the words, you have to pronounce them properly. If you mispronounce them, you get opposite effect, like in Bhagavatam, a demon comes out instead of anything else. So you have to be trained to actually chant those mantras very properly. And Sudras are not allowed even to hear the syllable Om, when to speak of the Vedas. So it does require qualification to chant properly and get some good effect. Pancharatric mantras are a little more liberal, and anybody can chant those, but then again it has to go through the Guru. At least that much Shakti has to be there. The devotee Guru has to give you the mantra, and then you chant it. and that way it works. So it may not have to be the perfect, they don't have svaras, etc., so it's a little less complicated. Nevertheless, even there, as we saw with Gopakumar, there was some rules and regulations for chanting mantras. They're also mentioned Hari Bhakti Vilas, like Sudhi, etc. You purify the mantra first and chant it forwards and chant it backwards and do this, do that to it. There was the Purusharana ceremony also, as mentioned in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Yeah, yeah. But then, of course, it says that Krishna mantras don't need any of that. You don't need the Sudhi, you don't need the Purusharana, so Krishna mantra is a little special. And then, furthermore, the name is even more liberal. So you don't even need initiation for that. You chant the name, it has power. So Ajamil accidentally chanted the name Narayan and he got all of his karmas dissolved like that. So it does have effect, but if you want to chant the name also, if you want to get the highest effect, then you also need teachings and knowledge and whatever, and some purity there. So we have Sudanam and Namabhas, so that's the subject of the the Harinam Chintamani. So
then we see, like, when we get Gayatri Diksha, we get 6 Pancharatric mantras and we get 1
Vedic mantra. Yeah.
But the Prabhupada didn't seem to be so concerned about the quality of pronunciation of that Vedic mantra. So why?
Well, I think because we have a prominence of Harinam. That's our main sadhana as far as advancing. So therefore, yeah. And whatever mistake we make there is compensated for by chanting Hare Krishna, yeah. Which is beyond all the rules and regulations. And of course, it's our main sadhana anyway. So we use those mantras mainly for deity worship, and we don't chant them so much in our daily life. Yeah?
But then we see that Prabhupada also told Jananivasudha that he couldn't chant the mantras, just chant the English translations.
Yeah.
It seems like he didn't really put a lot of emphasis on it.
That was, of course, that was the other mantras, like waking up mantras and things like that. I think that was what he was saying. I was just speaking about specifically the deity mantras, which are Pancharatric mantras.
But one time Prabhupada also said he was experiencing some, well, he said suffering because his disciples weren't chanting the Gayatri mantra properly.
Oh, really? Yeah. Probably it means they weren't chanting at all. They forgot to chant, or they neglected it completely. In other words, they got initiation, but then they weren't following the order of Guru, so then that's not good either.
Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam that we shouldn't hear the chanting from the lips of a non-devotee because it's like the drinking milk from the
Poison, yeah.
So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so yes, what does this mean? That I think it's from Padma Purana that, if you hear the Harikatha, topics of Hari, not just mantras, but any topic of Hari, of the Supreme Lord from a non-Vaishnava, then it becomes like poison. Huh? So, and then of course we find that the Prabhupada also, he criticizes the people who are professional reciters of Bhagavatam, and they do their 7-day recital, and he says it's all useless because they're not Vaishnavas, so that has no good effect on anybody. Yeah? So that is true. The sound is a spiritual sound, whether it's Puranas, Bhagavatam, Harinam, other mantras. It's spiritual in effect, but the deliverer also affects what goes into your ear. So just like the milk is pure, but if the poison is mixed with the milk and you drink it, you get poisoned. Nothing wrong with the milk if you could take and separate the two things out, but we can't do that. We just take the whole milk with the poison, so we get affected by the poison. So because of our, we can say, our imperfect senses, we can't filter out the poison and just take the milk. So that's why we prefer not to hear from those persons, because poison means materialistic. We get materialistic influence. So persons who recite the Bhagavatam but don't actually believe in the Supreme Lord, and they believe in Devata worship and material goals instead, that's going to actually influence what you hear And you won't be inspired to develop spiritually and get prema. You'll more go into getting material benefits instead, even if it's not directly stated by him in his lecture, because of his belief that's going to affect you. Yeah? So then it goes over also into other areas like Kirtan and whatever. So we have people that don't even believe in the Supreme Lord doing Kirtan, then what effect that's going to have on us. It may sound nice, but then again, the ultimate effect is it'll turn us into materialists as well. So therefore we don't hear from the materialistic people doing Kirtan like the bowels and whatever. So, in other words, we have the name and it's all powerful, but then, we have namabhas of various sorts, so that's a type of namabhas. It has some power, but also it has some bad effect on us.
You said that the name is so merciful that we don't require initiation to chant. I remember Ramai Maharaj was here, and Ramai Swami, he said one time Prabhupada was invited to South America to give an initiation, and he said, oh, actually it's not me that's initiating, it's the holy name. So technically if we're chanting Hare Krishna, then the holy name's already initiated us.
Yeah, of course. What does initiation mean?
Or Harinam, it's Diksha, receiving Harinam through Diksha. What's the difference between just chanting Hare Krishna and then receiving Harinam Diksha?
So that's a little confusing because originally Diksha meant getting your secret mantras. That's what we call second initiation. So even in Gaudiya Mat, that's Diksha. The first is not called Diksha at all. However, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sometimes refers to Nam Diksha also, which means that you seriously start to chant Hare Krishna. And you accept some guru and get his instructions about what to do and what not to do, etc., and he gives you knowledge. So that, of course, is, we can say, getting knowledge so that we can chant purely. So we get Sambandha Gyan, which is mentioned in tomorrow's thing also, Namabhas versus pure name. So therefore, only with pure name we can get prema. So therefore, in that sense, it's necessary to get the teachings, therefore necessary to accept devotees or guru, and that's the Nam Diksha, so to speak. But it's not a formalized ceremony like the other one, which is, the normal scriptural ceremony for Diksha.
The last two mantras that you mentioned, so they're basically a diagram of the sound vibration of a particular deity's, like pranam mantra, I presume. That's how you'd understand that?
You're talking about yantras?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we have Krishna yantra. So in that yantra, then the syllables of the mantra are written somewhere in that mantra, or we have a Garuda yantra. So in that there's the Garuda, the Gayatri is in there, whatever, or we have a Vishnu, a Narayan yantra, and then Narayan Gayatri is put in there, or we have a Vraha yantra, and it's the Vraha Gayatri is placed inside there somewhere in that yantra.
It's recommended you can have them printed, put them in different places in your house.
Oh, that's for Vastu.
For Vastu.
Yeah.
So, but I've also heard that copper plates is better than paper plates. I'm just wondering if they conduct the energy better, because I know in Mayapur when they're establishing the temple they put copper Vastu plates in the ground.
Yeah. Well, whether it's better or not, I don't know, but certainly it's more permanent than paper. on the altar of Nrsimhadev, they have some yantras there, the Nrsimhadev yantras, so they're metal, like copper ones, so then they can also, you can even worship them like a deity and bathe them and whatever like that. Whereas paper, you couldn't do that so much, and start deteriorating.
Yeah, so simply having them there's like not necessarily chanting that mantra, but just having a pictorial.
Yeah, that's also okay. It has its effect because it's the form of the mantra, and then it's non-different from the deity. So therefore, you got the deities in the